problems they had early on. And I'll look at a couple of those others that look a little bit more like the early ones. John had this magazine he found. I'm not sure when it was. We saw a couple of dates on there, 83 and a 69. Yeah, 369. So it's an old mag, still in the wrapper. Maybe it won't work. What do you think? We don't know what to expect. Bugs might come out of here. What? Two wrappers. Well, this might take some of you back that maybe were in Vietnam. Cool. Colt, AR-15. Wow. So this thing was called the AR-15, right? For a good while. It was really the M16 as the military designation. As I understand, it's still really correct to call the whole family of them an AR-15. They really are an AR-15. We think of AR-15 as being the civilian version and M16 being the military, but AR-15 is what they called it when Eugene Stoner, built it in this chamber. Let's put a couple of these in and shoot them. See if this magazine has been in the wrapper for a while will actually work. What do you think? Yeah, pretty cool, huh? So, yeah, the Curtis LeMay really liked it, and there were some strong advocates for it. And it would be, I guess, Curtis LeMay, General Wyman, who else? Well, Robert McNamara, when he became Secretary of Defense, he was interested in it heavily and wanted to standardize one rifle for all the forces. But the only thing was the Air Force, they did not want the forward assist. Air Force did not want that at all. And the military did, the Army did. So you had a couple of different versions early on. Actually later on, because the Air Force did not want the forward assist at all and didn't have it. Their early version was, I think it was called the M16, and the Army's early version before this was the XM16 or E1, and it had the forward assist at one point there, because the Army really wanted the forward assist. So let's see if this new mag works. New, quote unquote. You know what we could do? I better take another one, we might need it. Let's go down here and take out these watermelons. Like I said, we want to have some fun with this. And we just noticed some watermelons down here. Now before I shoot them, I want to just make a note, promise everybody that nobody is starving because we went and bought those 8 watermelons. There were others there when we left the store, okay? Or picked them from the vine. There were others there. So anybody who was starving from watermelon nutritional deficiency, they could have had those, all right? Some people need to take a course in Economics 101. Need I say more? All right, let's just take them out. This is for R. Lee Ermey. We might need to hit them again, just to make sure. We're empty, okay? Yeah, R. Lee Ermey came to me in a dream last night, and knowing R. Lee Ermey as you know him, he didn't ask me to shoot some watermelons because I have an M16. He ordered me to. He said, "Maggot, shoot some watermelons with that thing." And so I did. How's that? Okay. So that was in honor of R. Lee Ermey. Yeah. So yeah, again, so the Army was going all the way back, and let me show you over here. The early, like the XM16 E1s, and I think there was an E2, and I'm not all that knowledgeable about all those different models and variations, but they look more like this. Even the military models, maybe they're civilian models, but they were slab, flat-sided. They didn't have the fencing, for the mag release, and just different. Okay, you don't have the quick release button on that. Don't even have that little boss there with the spring-loaded detent for that yet. Neither is mine. This is my A2, quote unquote, but for almost the entire time up into the 80s, they were still using these old slab side lowers for these things, and like even this still has the screw, doesn't have the captured pin or anything, even though this is technically an A2, it's transitional. I bought it in 83 or 4. So that's more what they look like, just like that. And then they began putting, you know, the boss up here, the detent for that, and then, as you see in, well, this one, the A1, you know, by the time you get to this point, you've got that protection there to keep you from hitting the mag, excuse me, the mag release when you're not ready to, or whatever. You've got the fencing, total fencing up here, and of course the spring and the quick release pin there, or the captured pin. So that was some of the looks. If you see maybe a close-up of somebody in, I don't know, Vietnam footage or whatever other, or anywhere, and it's 63 or 4 or 5 or 6 or something before the final, the A1, it'll probably look a little more like some of these, or an Air Force model would look more like this with no forward assist, you know. And of course, they just didn't have the shell deflector yet. That came later with the A2. We'll talk about that. So, yeah, and also I meant to mention the AR, I think it was AR-5 that that Armalite came up with, the early survival rifle for the Air Force. So you've seen one of the, I mean, Henry Rifles makes one of those now. They have that, and that's been passed around a little bit. That was for the Air Force. But the Air Force has been a proponent of this. They were from early on. And there were some people who were open-minded. There were people who were closed-minded. You know, the Army was dead set on going ahead with the N14 project, and they pretty much did. But then it was finally canceled, I think, by McNamara in like 63 or something like that. Said, look, this is the ticket. This is what we need, okay? And one of the problems, which I haven't talked about, let me get a 30-round mag. Now, 30-round mags didn't come along till, I think, around 1970 or so. So that's why in Vietnam, you know, the 20s are actually a little bit more appropriate, I guess. But I'm going to take one down here because we might need it, okay? I've got some things down here that need to be shot. I'll put one of these in my pocket in case. Okay. This is the fun of having a fully auto M16, right? Okay. I don't know who put this stuff here, but it looks like it was done intentionally. And it looks like somebody knew that I have a machine gun. Okay. We're on safe. Now, do we want to shoot it semi or full auto? Yeah, let's go full auto. Wow, it doesn't take long, does it? Good thing I brought another magazine. We're empty. I'll get that mag later. Oh man, it's really fun. It's a different sort of feel. If you've never shot full auto, I highly recommend you get to a rental range somewhere where you can do that sometime. Just pay your fee and do it. It's a lot cheaper than buying one, no doubt about it. So look at the smoke coming off that thing. Is that cool? Yeah. So when you know, the Colt got hold of this, bought it in '59 from Armalite, then you know, the marketing got better, and then just a combination of events, like the cranking up in Vietnam, getting more involved, not having enough M14s, not being able to build enough of them, even if we wanted to stick with that. And then these things being out there, being easier to build, more of them, okay? And then having some advocates, you know, for it, like LeMay, of course, in the Air Force, you know, McNamara, Wyman, they wanted this, okay? And then the people that were getting them really liked them. People that were using them. I know that flies in the face of what you heard, because the thing we hear the most are the problems, right? Okay, well, the first problems didn't really occur right away. I think we'd been in Vietnam and some numbers for a little while, not a long while, but maybe it was a year or two. I don't know when all that started happening. But what it came down to, by and large, in a nutshell, was they had meant for this to be a shot, or the ammo to be extruded powder or stick powder, and that's what you know, Stoner designed it as. The cartridge and everything should have stick powder, okay, which burns differently than ball powder. Well, what happened was for whatever reasons, the military went to ball powder because they had more of it or standardizing things or something. So ball powder burns hotter. It was harder on the gun, more wear and tear, more pressure, and dirtier. Okay, and they thought that these were self-cleaning, and basically advised soldiers even, you don't need to clean this thing. No cleaning kits were provided with them. How brilliant is that? And of course the chambers were not chromed early on or anything like. They chromed some of the early bolts, but they discovered after people started having trouble with them, it was an extraction problem. The rounds would stick in the chamber and they couldn't get them out. And the soldiers would be carrying a cleaning rod taped to the forearm here. In order to the only way to get it out was down the barrel because it'd rip through the rim. And so they had to go through the barrel and get it out. And how'd you like to do that in a firefight? People are trying to kill you. And that's what happened. Unfortunately, we don't know how many, but some soldiers lost their lives simply because the gun malfunctioned. How horrifying would that be? Your gun won't work. But that's what they figured it out, that it was the powder, it was the chamber, sticking in the chamber, of course, and and the bolt, they just started parkerizing that. It really wasn't a bolt problem. So I think they started hard crumbing the inside of the carrier, maybe in the bolt. But so that pretty much fixed that problem. Because they got in Vietnam and they're in the water and the humidity and the wet and everything. Well, imagine it. Your rifle, your guns, what happens to the chamber? If you don't clean it, it gets corroded, it gets rusty, and the rounds don't want to come out, of course. You're firing full auto and getting really dirty. Well, once they did that, voila. I'm sure someone had some hang-ups, but that pretty much fixed it. And that was before this, okay? So this represents the fixed version, pretty much. Okay. Now, I know I've talked about a lot of that pretty quickly. We got a lot of stuff on the table, just kind of showing you the bayonet for this. The old, there's a Vietnam helmet. We got the old World War II and Vietnam, whatever, 1911 here, 1911 A1. So just a little table decoration there, some cool guns. And again, we don't have any, like whatever XM16 E1s or anything like that. We just got some civilian models that look a little bit like that, just to show you a little bit of the difference. And I'll show you, kind of give you a little comparison between the A1 and the A2, which came out in the early 80s. First, I think this is John's rifle. So I think he should talk about it a little bit. Don't you? Okay? I think he should, and maybe talk to you a little bit about the firearms like this, transferable firearms. He's more of an expert on that than I am. So I'm going to cut right now and let John talk to you a little bit, okay?
All right, John Hickok here. So like Dad said, this is my machine gun, and I just want to talk about just a couple of things really quick. I want to tell you a little bit about the laws about a machine gun and why I'm calling it a machine gun and why we're calling it that, and some things without getting too much. I'm not going to get into the political stuff so much, about with that. That'll be maybe for another video. But, okay, so some of you might be thinking, this is not a machine gun. It's not belt fed. So machine gun is a legal term because of the laws around machine guns, which means any firearm that fires more than one round per pull of the trigger is basically the definition for a machine gun. Is classified legally in America, at least, as a machine gun, right? So even though this might be technically just a rifle or an assault rifle or some other different types of terminology you might use, legally it is a machine gun, just like with silencer and suppressor, where silencer is the legal term, suppressor is kind of what we call them. So this is a machine gun, and it's a transferable machine gun, meaning that if you live in a state where machine guns are legal, it's most states, it's like 40 or so in America, 40 states where you can own a machine gun. As long as you can buy a handgun, then you're probably okay to buy a machine gun, right? And the process is basically you find one. There's not that many, but there are several, large machine gun retailers you can find online. There's a lot of really small ones. There's like different little networks where guys are just into the hobby, and you can kind of get to know certain people that are kind of selling them and stuff all the time. And once you find one, you find the right price. You contact the guy, you buy it, then it has to be transferred from them to your local shop if they're out of state, which normally they are because it's difficult to find them, so you're not likely to find what you want necessarily in your state, but you could. So it has to be transferred, just like buying any gun, to the local shop, and then it can be transferred from there to you. So the whole process can take anywhere from like 7 months to as many as like 15 months. It can take a very long time for it to be fully transferred to you before you can take it home. You have to have the paperwork with you. There's no machine gun license. You have to buy the tax stamp. Each machine gun that is legal for a civilian that's transferable has a tax stamp associated with it, and it's for each time. So it doesn't matter if you have 30 machine guns, you have to go through it all over again each time you buy one. There's no license for civilians in that sense. You can become a dealer or a manufacturer, but if you're just a civilian, it's every single time. There's no license, and even they have to go through a lot of that same exact stuff whenever they are transferring machine guns. So if you're thinking about buying a machine gun, make sure that you know the local laws, and you look into all that stuff. We don't agree with them. I'm just advising you as your legal advisor. You can find yourself in a lot of trouble, and just know what you're getting yourself into if you're getting into it. And then lastly, before I go, they're very expensive because there's a limited number of them because of the Hughes Amendment, unfortunately, making it to where no new ones can be manufactured post May of 1986. That's why they're very valuable. General supply and demand, properties, principles is why that exists, but they are also a really good investment right now. I wish they weren't, but they are a good investment. So if you buy one, you might spend a lot of money on it, but you can get your money back out of it pretty well. So there you go. This definitely warrants like more videos because it's so much information, but there you go. M16A1 machine gun. I'll give it back to Dad because he's got some more things to tell you about it. Thanks.
All right, the ugly guy is back. John is right. They are, sadly enough, or at least it's sad, the reasons they're a good investment, but they actually are. I know we all talk about guns being a great investment, especially to our spouses, right? But the Class 3 firearms actually are. They're like buying real estate. Okay, a couple things we hadn't shot, and we need to make sure everything gets shot. Let's put one on the paper, or 3 or 4 or 5 real quick. How's this? Got to go in full auto to do it quick, though. Yeah. And let's smoke a little pot. We haven't done that yet. That's probably why I haven't made any sense today. Did not start out by smoking pot. I'm going to try to do, I don't want to hit the animals over there with 223. They're not hardened steel. I want to just try to demonstrate a little bit, and this is a fairly light one. The A2 is much heavier and easier to control, keep on target, but even with this one, I'm going to try to hit that cinder block. If I feel it coming up, I'll do bursts here. I'm going to put it on full auto and try to hit the barrel and cinder block without hitting the buffalo or anything else over there. Okay? Oh, I did. I'll let it get up on the buffalo. The buffalo is actually hardened steel, but you do have really good control. Let me put on this paper again to kind of demonstrate. I mean, you can keep them in a pretty good little group, and if you really, work at it, you can do even better than that. So, how about these guys right here? How was that for full auto? Had 1 round. There's a tip. Full auto is not going to be very interesting if you have 1 round left, right? So let me compare. I might take one more shot, but the last thing I wanted to do was just kind of give you an idea how the A2 changed. And of course, you got all sorts of configurations, right? You see them, and many of you have them. And one thing I forgot to point out before, one of the things that was so innovative about this, of course, was the locking lugs, the multi-lug locking bolt. That's what enables you to have an alloy receiver, right? I mean, some of you know more about it than I do. It's like a Benelli. I think of like a Benelli, or even Mossberg. People worry about the alloy receivers. Well, again, I pointed that out before. If your steel bolt is locking up in steel up here. It's steel to steel locking up. So it's not relying on aluminum. And that's why Benellis and Mossbergs last forever. AR-15. So that was an interesting design. Also, he started out with a 308. So you can imagine a rifle is not very heavy in 308. Now that's going to knock you around a little bit, isn't it? But this straight line, you know, the barrel, the bore, the bolt, right on back through the recoil spring and everything, it's all in a straight line. It comes straight back at you, unlike a lot of rifles where you got kind of a drop comb and everything. So it was probably to our advantage that he started out with the 308, because it made him probably think more about all of that, how important all that would be in a harder kicking round, you know. And then in 223, it's really nice and easy to control, right? Especially in the A2, which brings me to the last topic here pretty much. So we got an A2 upper here. John has an A2 upper. This is actually supposedly from a, you know, machine gun. A2 upper, doesn't really matter whether it's from a machine gun or not, but it's from an M16. And you see the differences, and there's some I won't point out necessarily, but the obvious ones, your rear sight, you know, you can adjust. You got this separate block here where you can, you know, you can adjust windage and elevation from the rear. On the A1, this is, you know, of course the A1, you can adjust windage, but elevation you got to do out here on the front sight. So that was a real improvement. Just a nice sight, you know. The A2 was a big improvement. It really was. And you see some other differences here. You've got, of course, your brass deflector on the A2. You got a round button, you know, on your forward assist. This one is really, I think, maybe it's got a little cutout there that might indicate that's even older. Some of y'all that know a lot about these can chime in there. Okay. And so you got that. We don't have a you know, actual lower. We got a more modern gun here, but so we're empty, of course. Yeah, it's a different you know, forearm on it, of course. You got your triangular versus your round. A lot of people prefer the triangular. I kind of like the round one. And you got your flash suppressors. You got the bird cage, of course, even on the A1, but you don't have a solid bottom on it. You notice it's probably hot. I'm not going to touch it. But on the A2, you got it solid, so it acts a little bit like a compensator. And plus, you're not blasting dust up as much and that kind of thing. And your sight post goes from a round post to a square post. You know, and there's other differences, but you know, pins and different things maybe, but that's one of the biggest. Your bolt, let's look at the bolt real quick on this thing. And I haven't gotten into any of that. There's this, you could spend 10 hours, of course, talking about all these kinds of things, how they change the bolts. So there's so many changes from like whatever, 1958, 9, as they started with these, up until like this A1 in 67, 68. So many different, almost everything on the firearm. The grip, you know, goes to a, where's my, you know, there's the my A2. You got a finger groove there. You know, you went from the teardrop on the forward assist to just everything almost changed. The buttstock on the A2 is longer. I'll put it up against the A1. You see there? It's an A2 buttstock. So you got a little more length there. It changed a little bit on the end. No limit to the number of changes. Like I say, the early bolts, many of them were hard chromed, and they even changed the staking approach to it. They changed the pin. This is a cotter pin. I think it's the same on this one too, but the really early ones were like a machined pin or screw there, some things like that. So the firing pin very early on was heavier, and they had a little bit of a problem with slam fires, so they lightened it to the firing pin that you're used to. So most of the things on this one, and of course of these, are things that you're accustomed to seeing, because I don't really have like a really early version, of course, like an XM, you know, 16 E1 or anything, or like the very first Colt 601 that they came out with once Colt had bought it. So I really do advise you, if you have interest in these firearms, you just dig around. There's a lot of great books on them, and if you have a lot of interest in them. So, you know, the A2 is some improvements. The A2 is really nice. The Marines, I think, adopted it in about 83. They're the ones who drove the changes, I think, because they are riflemen. And I don't say that in jest. I've known some folks in the Marines, and I've shot with them, and they know how to shoot. And so this was kind of, the Marines adopted this first, these changes, and then the Army a few years later. But when we have fired this with this upper, right? Yeah, this upper on it. Wow, it's really easy to control because you got heavier barrel on the A2, and one of the other changes I didn't mention. So it's some really nice changes for the A2. That's what we're mostly familiar with. And we brought out, guess what? It's just an M4. So this is what we have today, isn't it? And it's interesting because they haven't changed dramatically since the 60s, have they? Well, they look kind of the same. Lower the upper and the way they operate. The bolt, they're basically the same rifle they were, in the beginning, just with tweaks here and there. And now we cut most of the differences, I guess, since what the A2 have been. What do you do? Start the fire going again? Since the A2 have been cosmetic, or just things that make it more comfortable, and with grips and all kinds of stocks and all that sort of thing. The Magpul. I don't think Magpul was making magazines back in the day, and of course our red dots or whatever else we want to put on them. But very, very, very similar. This is a BCM, and they haven't changed a lot. Like I say, I'm not an expert in these things at all. I just like them, and they're fun to shoot. The history is kind of interesting. If you really have just bought one of these, I advise you to explore, do some reading. Like I say, the folks I recommended, and there are others that do a great job of laying out, and they have their hands on, or they build these things. There are people who have them that have built like the E1s and different E2s or whatever, and can go into the details of what's different exactly, right down to the pin. How they began rubberizing, coating the sling swivels, and just everything. So it's pretty interesting stuff. It just gives you more appreciation for what you have. And I don't know if there's any other lies. I don't know any more lies. I'll shoot one more time and I'll let you go, okay? Can I empty one more mag? I know it's bad time to be emptying magazines, but we're going to do it today because we have a machine gun, right? Pretty much safe. We have a machine gun. I'm going to make sure everything down here is finished off. How's that? I just want to make sure there's no survivors down here. All right. We're empty. So again, as I've said before, it's really nice to be able to have a firearm like this and fire it. It kind of speaks to freedom, doesn't it? And I guess I'd like to say we really appreciate the people that have carried these in battle. These and other firearms, whether it's the Garand up there or the M14 or whatever it might be, or a muzzle loader, to make sure we're free and we have the freedom to do this kind of thing. And so John and I have not served in the military. And we do not pretend to be G.I. Joes. We just have an interest in firearms, and we find these firearms very interesting and just fun to shoot. And so anyway, we appreciate that freedom and appreciate those folks who helped protect it for us. So anyway, M16A1. That's just kind of an overview with a smattering of pieces of information. There's a lot out there, probably more than you're interested in, but it's out there. So I'm going to let you go. We appreciate your support. I know we've gone long, but that's not all that unusual for us, is it? I apologize. No, I don't. Life is good.
Tired. It's a long walk from where I had to shoot that. Oh, man. Oh, hey, didn't see you guys there. Since you're here, I want to let you know about our friends over at Talon Grips and Ballistol, talongungrips.com. Check out everything they have over there. You can get lots of different grips, the stick-on grip textures for your handguns and rifle grips, so go check them out. Also, Ballistol, they're a firearms lubricant or anything else you might need lubricating. It's water soluble and non-toxic. Been using it on the compound and cleaning all of our guns. It's a cleaner and a lube for over 10 years. So Ballistol, Talon Grips, definitely check both of those companies out. And also, while you're on the internet, don't forget to go to hickok45.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Hickok45, Twitter, Hickok45, Instagram, The Real Hickok45, and also I have an Instagram page where I post behind the scenes stuff and different things like that. John, John _ HICKOK45 on Instagram. And the next thing you have to do is watch more videos.
In Tennessee, where freedom is alive, you hear shots ring from the woods. Take a life is good. Any problem should. It's commentary now. In the land of the free.
Yes, Hickok 45 with a dead battery, apparently. My speaker keeps shutting off. Anyway, Hickok 45, your internet shooting companion, coming to you from the beautiful hills of Middle Tennessee, as well as all of Tennessee. Yes, the home of Chet Atkins, Buford Pusser, Davy Crockett, and many others, right? So many of you are very happy that my battery is dying. I wonder why it wouldn't stay on, or not my phone, but my speaker. So yeah, I'm here though, music or not. The sweet sound of an AK round, that's music, right? That's pretty good. I don't know if that's country, western, rock, heavy metal, maybe heavy metal with a heavy metal firearm. Yeah, I got it on the big old AK safety. Maybe I will take the mag out and get it totally safe so I can mess with it a little bit. Okay. All right. You've seen this. We haven't done a video with it yet, although John has one. This is just the AKS 762 Polytech Chinese AK with the folder, the nice folder. It's very, very, very nice. Yes. So I almost got out last week, and for whatever reason didn't. So I put it on my list because I've been in the mood to shoot it for a while now. I have not fired an AK for a pretty good while now, I guess. You tell me, how long has it been? When did I fire an AK last? Huh? Did you see me do it? Anyway, AKs are fun if you haven't fired one before. No, I didn't bring it out so I could, flaunt some Tula ammo or some Russian ammo, right? I've got some, but I always have ammo in advance. So I do have some Tula. I have different kinds of Russian ammo, Federal, which I didn't have a box today. I forgot. This is some Federal ammo, brass case. Okay, that's cool. We Americans, we use brass cases on our AK ammo, 762 by 39. It's and I love it, in the brass case. We did have one firearm that didn't like brass case. That was John's Mahdi, I think it was, wasn't it? The Egyptian Mahdi, and we talked about in the video, and had to use Russian ammo with it, or steel case ammo, and I was just firing brass case right there. So I think this one's okay, and I think my arsenals fire brass, ammo okay, brass cases. And I fire both though, and we get some of that from Federal, and I buy a lot of regular steel case ammo for them too, just plinking around. And I've got one eventually with the fun switch, maybe almost another year, but so hopefully there's some ammo around for that. Actually, that's what I've been planning for. So and I'll shoot mainly steel case ammo, out of that. But anyway, yeah, I'm glad to see you, and I'm glad to have a favorite firearm out here. And I've always liked the 762 by 39, even before it was available. Somebody showed me one in a gun shop one time in the 70s, a bullet, not an AK. And I thought, that is a neat little round. .30 cal, a little shorty and everything. So that's the Russian round. We used to just call it the Russian round back then. So anyway, I brought that out, and good to see you all. What should I talk about? I don't know. That is terrible. And the Russian ban on Russian ammo, pretty much. For whatever reason, interesting that if we're punishing, Russia, it's going to be with firearms, right? We're gonna punish ourselves by reducing the firearms and the ammo that people, by the millions in this country, shoot and enjoy. So yeah, let's punish them. Couldn't have been other areas, right? It would punish the politicians, or some of the politicians, like a ban on, I don't know, wine, whatever. So, but that's the kind of way it is. They are always coming after our firearms and our ammunition one way or another. If they see any way at all, they're going to do it. Okay, and that's it's not being paranoid. It's just the way it is. The way it's been basically my entire life. I remember back in the 70s, they were coming after snub-nose pistols, revolvers, pistols, little handguns. That was the big thing. Saturday night specials. That was it. Those were the buzzwords. There were no buzzwords about assault rifles and all that kind of thing at that time. And then they chose some other target. They just go after whatever they think they can get. So that's an ongoing battle, and I hope you are involved in that battle and you are staying in touch with your representatives, because if you're not, you're part of the problem, right? So speaking of gun rights, the NRA. Some people wouldn't want to put that in the same sentence with gun rights, right, these days. Like I said before, the NRA is probably not as good as we think it is, and it's probably not as bad as we think it is. But the meeting was canceled, and I wondered what they were going to do, because the more I was hearing, it just didn't look good to me, and I was checking with the convention center in Houston and the NRA, and all I could get, I think I said, is at this time, there's no restrictions. At this time, you're allowed to breathe, when you're in the convention center and all this kind of thing. And I'd actually canceled my reservations several days ago because I didn't like the sound of it. So I was canceled out of that before they canceled. So I could just see it. That wasn't going to work too well, That wasn't. I could see restrictions coming, and you got a bunch of basically independently minded people. Probably not going to cooperate that well. Maybe 50 to 100,000 of them swarming into the city. And so whether it would be a real super spreader or not, or a fictional super spreader, whatever, that was not going to probably set well with a lot of people, and not going to go well. So for whatever, I don't know, inside information, what the last straw was that caused them to cancel. So anyway, that is that. And I want to thank the people that help us. budsgunshop.com. Check them out. Longtime supporter, and got a gun, 2 guns, came in this past week, I guess, that we'll be shooting, from Buds on loan, going back for the e-gunner auction. And appreciate Federal Premium. That's what I've been firing. I'm going to fire some more of it. And I do have one magazine of Tula, but we appreciate Federal keeping us going. And the Sonoran Desert Institute, because I rebuilt this AK with my knowledge from my coursework at sdi.edu. No, I really didn't. I'm too dumb probably to pass that. But no, we appreciate that. You can learn gunsmithing, get certified in gunsmithing, and get well on the road to becoming a gunsmith. We really do need a lot more gunsmiths. It's tough, as you probably know, to get firearms worked on sometimes, depending on where you live. And if you have a good gunsmith around, really good one or two, it's like gold, and they're probably booked up. The better they are, the more booked up they are, the better the reputation. So a worthy avenue of study, no doubt about that. don't you think people are beginning to see the light that, especially after the last 10 years, that a college degree does not guarantee you a job or a well-paying job, and there are just other avenues out there. Nothing wrong with people working with their hands and learning to fix air conditioning units or whatever it is, and because a lot of those folks eventually end up starting their own business, just some real useful practical skills like gunsmithing or whatever. So there for a while, I think when I was in high school, that was kind of the story, the narrative. You gotta get a college degree, you want to be successful in life. Get that degree. It was like we were led to believe it was automatic, and it's not automatic. It's really not. I've been in some weird positions in my life, and employment-wise, in management, and I've been the peon a lot, and I've been a manager a fair amount. Kind of a short period of time, but it was very intense. And did some interviews, a lot of interviewing, and going through resumes. And, so much of what's on the resume, it just didn't really tell me what I needed to know. And quite often it didn't, it certainly didn't, was not a barometer or indication that person was going to be really good or fit in and do the work well. And you all know that. You folks that have been in management are in management. Resume is a kind of a snapshot. You can get some boxes checked, but you really have to talk to these people and get them on board. Ideally, through some sort of internship, right? See how they work and how creative they are, how industrious they are, and all those sorts of things. The degree and where they went to school